Hello, BookTube, and we're back with another edition of Simak 2025. I have with me Pat at Book Chat with Pat, Scott at, strangely enough, Scott Danielson, and Gavin at Genre Reads, and Ira at SF Words of Wonder. All great channels. The links are down below. If you're not following or subscribed, I guess you should. So today we're going to talk about Cosmic Engineers. This is the 1950 publication in Nome, but it originally was published in 1939 as serialized in three astounding science fictions, February, March, and April 1939. And it's his first novel and even his first published book. So
that republication in 1950, that was his first book?
Well, yeah,
Or was it before that?
It was first publication. Yeah, his first book.
Love it. Wow,
first
that's
book,
cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And strangely, it's not near as much as a collectible in price as later ones, which is unusual. Usually, people's first book are a lot, but this has not been. It has not aged well, or people haven't liked it as much.
And it's shocking because Gnome Press is highly collectible, and that's his first book. But yeah, you could find that for a pretty good deal.
That's a nice cover too.
There's two editions. Well, there's actually three. I'll get them in. This is the first edition with blue cloth and yellow lettering. There's a brown cloth, which was the second edition. I've never seen it, but this one had 6,000 print run. 1,000 of it was paperback with the same cover, and it was done for the armed services. I'd never seen it until Ira actually found a copy that was at some point for sale, signed by Simak. How much was that? That was like £1,200 or dollars, I think.
Yeah, I think it was $800 to $1,000, and I think it auctioned off in like 2016 or something.
Yeah,
2018. So.
And I've never seen it, but it's like there's 1,000 of those. Second print run, I don't have a clue. I haven't been able to identify any print run for it, but yeah, it's the artist here is Cartier. It's actually
it's a great cover for this book.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this is his first one. So we're back at the beginning of novels anyway for Simak. And this was he stopped writing a little bit about mid 30s because he didn't like what science fiction was happening. And then, like, he even says that when he heard that John W. Campbell was hired as editor and started in late 37, that he could write for Campbell. He sort of said that to his wife, and he started writing. So he wrote some short stories, and then he wrote this one. And you can see, I think you can see some of Campbell's influence in this, because even though Simak was a seasoned writer already, he was a journalist for a decade almost, and he wrote some science fiction. You can start seeing in the stories that he wrote for John W. Campbell a change, and then it just sort of developed from that. But this is his early days, and it's not bad, I don't think, despite what some of the reviews are.
I didn't think it was bad. It was kind of surprising how. So he wrote this in 1939, but he was dealing with a lot of things. Again, there's a lot in there, but he was dealing with a lot of things that came later in science fiction.
Yeah,
multi-universes and all that kind of stuff. I mean, so it was a simple, old-fashioned story. I guess the plot is simple and old-fashioned, and the characters.
Yeah.
But the ideas that he was playing with were, I mean, he was ahead of his time for sure.
Yeah, well, and I think even with the characters, he was a bit out of his time.
Absolutely.
As well. We'll get to that.
Okay.
So who would like to do a sort of a thumbnail, whatever, review, not review, but overview?
Well,
Gavin?
I'll do it.
Okay, go for it. Yes.
Always volunteer, I guess.
Love it.
So we're like, I forget the exact date. He gives you the exact date, but we're like thousands of years in the future, right? And there's a kind of a starship captain who's going to be the first human to leave the solar system, and he's out on Pluto in this new ship with this new technology. And this is kind of a big deal. And we have two journalists who are traveling out to Pluto. Did I say Pluto or Jupiter?
No,
Pluto,
Pluto.
yeah.
Yep.
So they're traveling out there to kind of cover this story, and they've been told from people on Earth that, hey, this guy, his ship isn't right. He shouldn't leave. You know, you got to help stop him and all this kind of stuff. But you know, they're kind of just out there to cover this story, and so on their way out there, they're almost all the way out to Pluto, and they see this little dot, and they kind of investigate it, and it looks to be some sort of derelict ship that's not 100% whole. And when they investigate it, they find what's on the cover of the Gnome Press edition. There's a woman who's been in stasis, and she's been like that for 1,000 years, and her body's in stasis, but her mind has been active this entire time. So she kind of described it as being in this like hell state almost, not being able to do anything. And so they kind of bring her to the surface of Pluto. They meet up with this captain and his crew there that are helping him. And they find out that there's been some communication from a different part of the galaxy. Every time Pluto rotates, they're catching these signals. And so that's where the story just kind of blossoms. And we, like we've mentioned, we get multiple universes, we get aliens, we go all over the place into the future. It covers a lot of ground.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but well done.
Yeah, and and the thing is that you know, it's a space opera, and it's very 30s, as you were saying, like it's very 30s. But a Lester Del Rey, I think, sort of said, "Oh, it should have stayed, you know, never been published as a book, because it should have stayed in the vaults of Astounding, because these people are middle class 1930s middle class people speaking like middle class people from the 1930s." Well, how else are they going to speak? You know, probably they'd be speaking a different language. I think it's like 30,000 AD or something like that, or something like that.
I thought it was like 6,000.
Yeah, I thought 6.
Yeah,
yes.
it's way in the future.
Yeah, it's way out there, but yeah.
And they, so they wouldn't speak English anyway, probably anymore, or nothing like English. But yeah, there's things that I really like. The two newspaper guys, they work for the Rocket, and he's used that before in a couple stories previously, that there's journalists from the Rocket. So he's again starting to recycle certain things.
And he was a journalist, I think.
Yeah,
I think you mentioned that already, but yeah.
And at this time, he started working in his final job, basically, as at the Minneapolis Star/Tribune in Minneapolis. Prior to then, he was sort of like a journeyman journalist going around to. He worked for a company for a while that basically sent him out to Midwest newspapers like Iron River Reporter to either fix it or close it or change it from a daily to weekly or weekly to daily. So he did all that kind of stuff. He just hopped around until he got this final job with Minneapolis Star, and he stayed there. I think he retired in either 75 or 76, and he was writing all that time as well. And there's, like I say, I read the serial as well. I'll get into more specific changes, but the one thing is, while they're going, you can tell the technology. Like, there's tube technology here, okay? And I really love tube technology. I want somebody to do like a vacuum tube punk or something like that. But anyway,
bring back the tubes.
Yeah, and in the serial, they're getting a message through on a teletypewriter, but in the book, it becomes a space writer, I think.
Huh.
So he changes that, because actually a teletypewriter is real. Space typewriter. Well, it sounds more futuristic, doesn't it? And there's a few other things, but the thing is about the characters. Typical, like you got this woman, and she's described. She's wearing these flowing gowns. She looks like she's come off of 1930s Hollywood set.
Yes.
And they refer to her a lot of times as a wisp of a girl. And he's looking at her, and she should be playing tennis. And all this stuff. But they do something very different. Do you want to take that part, Pat?
Well, I mean, that's what I loved about this, and I had the same reaction when she was introduced and described when she was still in the tank with her flowing robes. I thought, oh no, where is this going to go? And then when she's reanimated, and she ends up being the star of the show, and she's the great brains behind, all of the good stuff that happens. I was just so pleased. And that's where, I agree with what Scott said, that Simak was really so ahead of his times. I mean, when you think about this being written in the 1930s, that even though, some of the talk toward her might be perceived as a little condescending, but not really. I think everybody has great respect for her, and she's certainly the intellectual center of a lot of what happens in the novel. And I was really, really pleased by that. So
Very cool.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like there are like I say, wisp of a girl and these things, but they all acknowledge that she's got brains, because
absolutely,
she spent this 1,000 years thinking and working out equations.
Yes.
Like she was punished because she refused to give over basically plans or how to create this weapon that could have potentially destroyed the universe, because they had a war with the Jupiter, the Jovians, which is kind of interesting because we don't, Jovians show up again in like the Lopers, but I don't know if there's any connection there. Yeah. But it's just, it's mentioned there was a war and they've disappeared. 1,000 years they've been quiet.
Hiding out under the fog of Jupiter, apparently, right?
Yeah. But the interesting is that she's smart. She's developed ESP. Basically, she can read minds.
Yes,
and that comes in important in a moment. But let me see. One like later on, like I'm jumping ahead here, but the messages they get, they find out are from the edge of the universe by a group called Cosmic Engineers. She's able to connect with them through telepathy.
Right.
And later we find that one of the engineers says, nothing or absolutely nothing has anything he's basically saying that the shape of something and what it looks like has nothing to do with what it's like. So he says that in the one thing, and it's pretty clear that she's not what she looks like.
Yeah.
She looks like a wisp of a girl, should be playing tennis in these flowing gowns, but she's not. It's clear. Like he's clearly saying that, I think, in the story, and everybody does know that as well. And it is a bit different from other things because she is the heroine, and that doesn't happen all the time in 1930 science fiction or in a lot of science fiction.
Right.
Yeah, agreed.
So that's the thing. They get to Pluto, and they get these messages from the a plea for help from the edge of the universe. They don't know what it is, but they sort of telepathy messages to create this doorway. And the other guy that's there wants to go outside of the solar system. Is the Earth forces are saying that you can't do it, and also don't build this machine, don't turn it on, don't do this. And then they figure, they're going to do it anyway. So he flies his spaceship through this, and immediately they're at the edge of the universe. And they find out it's a race of robots that they call themselves Cosmic Engineers. There's two universes are going to collide, and they want help. They've put out a call to the universe for help. So they got a bunch of aliens, but they specifically targeted Pluto because a race of beings created them used to live there. We eventually find all this, that they used to live actually in the solar system, and two suns collided, and so they had to leave. And then but then they eventually returned to Pluto and sent out the robots to seed, or well, to create places for them to go to eventually. And they hadn't heard from them in millions and millions of years. So there's all these ideas. Like it's just a simple story, but it's all this stuff that is very cool. But I'll stop there. Like I don't know, Scott or Gavin.
That method, that method by which the engineers get in contact and get them to come to them, actually sort of foreshadows two things in science fiction. One is that telepathic ability. I mean, that becomes very big in the 50s with the whole psionics sort of stuff that John Campbell falls hook, line, and sinker for. But that's just the medium. The fact that you've got a message coming from another technology to tell us how to get to them comes along in the 1960s with A for Andromeda, and again in the 1980s with Contact. And it's a story that does seem to keep repeating itself every once in a while. I'm sure it's been done plenty of times since then in works I don't know anything about, but I'm trying to remember a time when we get told that information from another technology that brings us to them. I can't think of an earlier one than this.
Yeah, and there's several things I think in here as well, and I kind of wonder, like I said, that there's Campbell influences in here, and I kind of wonder if that might be something that either Campbell influenced, or did this set him on the road to that? Like it's because I don't know if there were many stories in Astounding before that were psi sort of stories and telepathy in Astounding itself, and I kind of wonder where this is, because I think another thing that happens is is that the humans are the only ones that can help these cosmic engineers, because humans are the only ones that have imagination that they can do this. That's very Campbell-esque, because Campbell didn't like aliens to be superior than humans. Humans had to get the upper hand over aliens, either conquer them or be smarter than them. And for Asimov sidestepped the issue, so he just didn't even write about aliens.
Yeah, that's interesting, because Simak comes back to this idea. I mean, we haven't talked about the superiority of the human race over aliens, but he keeps writing these stories where knowledge has been gathered, and the knowledge needs to be given to someone who can use it.
Yeah. And
humanity is that someone. At least 3 of the things that we've read have something similar to that.
Yeah. So I think he's taking, he's acquiescing to Campbell to a certain extent, but it's a bit subterfuge in a sense, because he's actually doing some other things, because he even talks about there somewhere in there. I think one of the engineers or somebody said something about a brotherhood. So we do get a brotherhood mentioned here as well. So you can see the germination of some ideas that he's going to expound later, and then there's lots of other things. But if anybody else have anything?
Yeah, when the engineers called out for anyone to help, they did get some other aliens that came by, but once they discovered the humans were the ones, they just let everyone else go. All the other aliens, they're like, you're dismissed. And it wasn't really a can of worms, but he did describe one of the aliens in a unique way that I think ended up kind of turning into what you see in a lot of his other novels, where it's like a can of worms or something along those lines, you know.
Yeah, yeah, it's quite interesting how, like I say, you can see the beginnings of certain things in here, and even in his previous stories. Like I say, with the like he sidesteps travel, faster than light travel, FTL, because scientifically it's not supposed to be possible. So he does it in other ways. Travel by the mind. How is that's done in many novels? We saw that in Project Pope later,
Mm-hmm.
and the doorway into, like, portals, the
The choice of gods.
choice of gods.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they travel just by mind and thought, but also to the mutants in City. They created some kind of portal to go through things, and what was the other one that we did where they got thrown into the desert world? I can't think of the name now.
Yeah.
We just read it a couple
I know,
months ago.
yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I
That
can't
was
think
a
of
great
the name.
one. The one with the big trees, right?
Yeah.
I'm looking at the list here.
And I can't think, because it was December. I think it was December's read.
Okay.
What was it called?
See, December's read was Destiny Doll.
Destiny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
My COVID brain's catching. But yeah, there's all that in there. And the only thing that I thought was a little strange was when they sort of, because they took these robots. Well, we read it immediately that they're robots, they're created, but they took them as being a race that evolved, and then they were a bit shocked that they were created. They were robots,
Right.
but they're saying, well, you look like us. You got 2 arms, 2 legs. And they find that this is the thing, they find out that the race that used to live in the solar system was somewhat human-like, or at least humanoid, with arms and legs by sounds of it. And the engineer surmises what happened was that their race is dying.
Mm-hmm.
So they started seeing life starting on Earth, or what would become Earth. So they seeded, they genetically engineered, so through a million years or more, that there'd be a being that would be what became humans, but it would be like them. That's just a fantastic thing. And it's like, I don't know where else that is in, like, at least not before that in science fiction.
Yeah, before that, I'm just thinking in modern times we have the Uplift universe by David Brin, where every species that we know of has been uplifted by another species.
Yeah, because life may not have in this universe, life may not have developed without them doing that, or it would be something completely different. It would be like one of the other aliens that they had there. They just never, they didn't have that's the key thing. He talks about imagination throughout this.
Yes.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, he also brings up his theme about life being, kind of precious in the universe in this one, which you see in almost every novel.
Yeah, that's a nice idea too. Sean, so you said that he changed this before he published it as a novel.
Yeah.
What did he change?
Well, like, there's little bits and pieces that I noticed. Like, I didn't go word for word, so I think there's.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned some things like just words for things, but did he write additional material, or was there anything like that?
Yeah, there's additional material, but there's another thing that I thought that jumped out to me was when Caroline, like, she put herself into suspended animation, and in the serial she said she used rare drugs from Mars, and she was surprised they hadn't actually discovered these drugs, even 1,000 years later. But in the book, it's just some rare drugs. So they took out the Mars aspect of it.
Oh, okay.
And then at one point they need to figure out, or the engineers, they need to figure out a weapon against the hellhounds, so that they're being attacked by something, an alien race called the hellhounds, which we'll get to in a moment too. But the engineer says, well, there's one place that might have this information, but it's 5 million years or whatever, or however many million years in the future. But it's a future, so that means, oh, then we'll survive. Well, no, it's a shadow. It may or may not be there. So they do create another doorway, and they go to what turns out to be Earth 5 million, or I think it's 5 million years in the future, or however many years in the future. And the remnants of humanity's there. The Earth is dying, the sun's dying, and they get the answer. And only Caroline can understand it because of the mathematics of it. So that when they come back in the serial, they go back through the doorway, and they appear in the city. But in the book, they go somewhere else. They are detoured somewhere else, and they have to fight some aliens. So there's 3 chapters of that.
Interesting. Yeah.
And that scene where they land and they're kind of put against the hellhounds 2-on-2. Have you ever read Arena by
Yes,
Frederick Brown?
that's exactly what I thought of too. I was thinking the Star Trek episode.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
Gavin was saying
which
that
was
too.
based on the same story. So yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, that just follows on from what must be three Star Trek references within 2 pages right at the beginning of the book. So you have warp speed is mentioned, replicators mentioned, 3D chess mentioned, all within about two or three pages.
Wow.
Right at the beginning.
Roddenberry must have
Someone
read
must
this.
have been paying attention. Yeah, Roddenberry's probably
For
paying
sure.
attention.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but nobody else has ever mentioned this, as far as I can tell.
Mhm.
Nobody else has ever mentioned this, and it's like, because I don't think it's a book that's widely read anymore. That's for sure.
No.
The only thing, A.E. Van Vogt wrote a lot of weird stuff,
Yeah.
and he was ahead of his time. But I can't think of anything specific along these lines that even he did.
I mean, it is there in amongst a bunch of sort of sci-fi pulp hallmarks. So there's plenty of your usual stuff going on. They still smoke pipes on rocket ships.
In the rocket ship. Yeah.
Yeah. You've got to have someone with an alliterative name, and you've got what's his name, Herb Harvey. So you've got to have someone with a bit of alliteration. You've got to be on like the Earth to Venus runs. You keep it within the solar system to begin with.
Yeah.
Space fever is mentioned very near the beginning. So I think when he sees the capsule and says, "Oh, you're just suffering from space fever," I just like the idea you could just put the word "space" in front of everything.
Yeah.
Smoking my space pipe.
And drinking as well, like alcohol is part of it, because the guy drops the thing. It's like, oh, we're going to be dry now for so long, not going to have any booze left.
You're right.
Mhm.
Right.
Oh man, yeah, that's funny. I wonder. Mark is here. He'd probably know this, but did they used to smoke on submarines in World War II? I wonder if they did. I mean, it was full of diesel smoke anyway, wasn't it?
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah.
So
Yeah,
why
in
is
closed
this
spaces.
so? Why is this considered so substandard then? Among his work, why are critics so hard on this book?
I don't know.
I
haven't read anything recently that people wrote about it.
I wish I had marked some stuff, but there it's just like an old fashioned space opera plot.
Yeah.
Kind of a super fast. Everybody's. In fact, was something I wish I had marked in my book was there was the bad guy, and he was stating that he was a bad guy. Remember that? I mean, he said, "I'm the bad guy," and it was just melodramatic, I guess I would say, in places, and I think that just may be the old-fashioned piece of it.
Yeah. And there's a lot of
I think that might be it. Yeah.
And there's tons of coincidences. If they didn't see this, he was looking out the thing and find Caroline and all this kind of stuff. But they even mention this, that all these coincidences, like, so you hold back on himself.
There's a reason for it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What probably throws people off too is this. You'd think that this was published in 1950, but then you realize it was actually written in 1939, and you compare it to some of the stuff. Like, I recently read Skylark of Space by E. Doc Smith.
That's fun.
This is miles ahead of that.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be like the first space opera, so I mean, you had to start somewhere, but I mean, yeah, way better.
Well, yeah, because that's basically, you stole my girl. I'm going to build a spaceship and go after you. And then they crash land, and then they get an alien race to build a bigger ship and a faster ship. So I'm going to build a bigger and faster ship, and then I'll find another race that'll build a bigger and faster ship.
And they navigate by looking out the porthole and looking at the stars. Just navigate like that.
Well, how else are you going to do it?
That's how I would do it.
But that's why it's so fun that one by itself. But I wanted to get to the Hellhounds. Gavin, did you want
Hellhounds?
Hellhounds, because me and Gavin are the only ones that I think that have read Hellhounds of the Cosmos.
Okay.
Yeah, so there is. I'm trying to remember when that is from. That is very early. Hellhounds of the Cosmos.
It's early 30s, early mid 30s.
32, I think, something like that. They don't look like the Hellhounds here, but they are beings from another dimension. So in Hellhounds in the Cosmos, it's the fourth dimension. Here, I think we go into the fifth dimension. So we've added one, but it's still interdimensional warfare. And in that short story, they're laying waste to the earth. They get together, a group of 100 men, and they go into the fourth dimension and fight the Hellhounds on their home turf. So it's not very sophisticated, but it is it's a lot of fun. And like Sean says, he's using the same terminology. So you get these journalists. You get journalists from the Rocket turn up again. The Hellhounds are turning up again. It's nice to see the bleed between the shared universe of his works, and seeing the same ideas being sort of finessed over time. And to be honest, I think you see that again with the Cosmic Engineers. So, obviously you've got City, where the knowledge, the repository of knowledge, is held within this robot, who is the only constant thread throughout this entire history of what's become of humanity. And you're sort of seeing that here as well. It's just nice to see the same ideas crop up again, but different facets of those ideas.
Yeah, and the thing with the City is that they were preparing it for the race that created them, but now they offer it to humans, and they say they make the decision that we're not ready yet for it. And so that's where, when they go into the future, they realize that it is that while they everybody reading it knows that that's where the humans went to. They got to a stage that they've matured enough. They've gone to the City, and they're living with the engineers now. We don't see any of that. We don't know. It's surmised, but then it sort of it clicks in to the characters near the end. But there's also an interesting thing is my unfinished future history project of Isaac Asimov's Future History. There's a series of 10 novels that are that were on outlines of Asimov, and some of them are that robots were sent out to create cities for humans so they could just walk in and live. So there's a connection there, I think, because Asimov clearly he liked Simak, and while they were friends, they corresponded. because he started with Rule 18, which was written in 37 or 38 in Astounding, and Asimov wrote a letter and said he didn't like what was in there, or he thought he was jumping around too much in time. And then Simak wrote him a letter, because at that time you put your address in the letters column. Well, why not? Or his father's candy store in New York. So he gets a letter from Clifford Simak asking, well, could you explain more of what you didn't like about it, and what the problem was, to help me better as a writer. So Asimov rewrote it and then realized that he was wrong, is because Simak would write and then he'd leave a space and then he'd jump around time or scenes, but the space in between told you that you're transitioning somewhere else. And then it was something that Asimov liked, and I guess he adopted it, and he adopted other things. But that's where his friendship, and they met at conventions, and they corresponded quite a bit. But yeah, so I have no doubt that he probably took this idea, of the engineers creating the city, and threw that in and put that in as the outline for these other authors to write.
Yeah, that might become reality. I don't know about a city, but some of the Martian plans, like if we go to Mars, would be to send robots first, and then some that can build a shelter first, and then have a shelter existing when humans arrive. So we're not that far away from that, maybe. We'll see.
I'm just looking at my notes here to see what else. Yeah, this is seeing the future of the Earth does not guarantee that the universe isn't destroyed. And I thought that was a neat idea. With it's a shadow. It could be a shadow.
Yeah. And the whole idea of universes colliding is, I mean, it's a fairly recent thing where they've thought, there are multiple universes according to the mathematics or whatever. That seems a pretty recent development, certainly not 1939.
And the other thing is, too, at the end of this, they now have energy. They can create solar systems. They can create stars. This energy source is absolutely unlimited. And it's all thanks to a wisp of a girl.
I think, I know you mentioned Skylarker Space already. I think here is where you start to see a little bit of the Lensman creep in as well. Because first off, you've got these tremendous, huge space battles that then start using sort of elemental universal forces as weapons. And then they are doing that. There's okay, well, now we're going to sort of create solar systems, make suns and stuff like that, which is, as the Lensman series goes on, they just start chucking planets at each other. And in a very sort of 1930s way as well. So it is the language, the dialogue that the characters are using to each other, right, is very hyperbolic in Smith. It's a little bit toned down here, but it's still recognizable.
The thing that I puzzled at a little bit while I'm reading it, and again, you can't look too closely at these things, but when they were on Pluto, they get the instructions to build the doorway or the machine so they can go through, because they need an anchor to go through. Now, how did they wind up in the future Earth? And then how did they wind up on that other planet? And how did they get back? Because they had no anchor on the other end.
It's the fifth dimension, Sean.
Yeah, but then if they don't need it, why did they need it on Pluto, though?
Well, when they get to the future Earth, how did they manage to park their ship right next to, literally the last man standing?
Man on Earth, yes.
Yeah, there's a coincidence you were talking about.
They saw
right?
a campfire burning.
Yeah. That's good stuff.
And also, too, he goes back to the last days of the Earth, which is his very first story, The World of the Red Sun. You know,
interesting. Yeah.
and there's a few things in there as well, and the travel through time and all this stuff, and talk about universes, the creator as well. Like there's so much of almost every story, like even the Mars drugs that are in the serial. There is stuff about that in a few other Mars stories that he wrote. Like he liked Mars during the 30s, and so he wrote quite a few little stories on that. And there's one weird one, like a second published story. If anybody reads it, there's no way you can tell that it's Simak. There is nothing in there really that is Simak. It is so different than everything else. Even Hellhounds of the Cosmos is quite a bit different, but there's still elements in there. Hellhounds of the Cosmos is a cosmic horror story. You might as well call it a cosmic horror. But it's never mentioned in cosmic horror lists. Or at least I've never seen it.
Interesting, yeah.
But yeah,
so
it's just
Hellhounds is the second one. Is that what you said?
No. Hellhounds
Mutiny on Mercury.
Yeah, Mutiny on Mercury.
Okay,
is the one, because basically the hero Selenites, moon men are slaves and Martians are slaves, and there's a rebellion. So a human puts it down, and and thinks that Martians and the Selenites should be slaves. That's very unsimac.
Yeah.
But it could have been written before the World of the Red Sun. The chances, even though it was published after, but it was written probably for it, it could have been his second written story. The first story has long disappeared, called Cubes of Ganymede, that was supposed to have been published in 28 or 29. I think 20. It was accepted in 28 to be published in Amazing Stories, but then returned a year and a half later, saying it was old fashioned now. So he in a sense he started writing in the 20s. Like he's right up there with Jack Williamson as one of, but he's never really mentioned this. They always mention E. Doc Smith and Jack Williamson for
probably because he didn't stay in that area, right? He moved on from that, and
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, even though you warned us on this, Sean, that it was going to be a little pulpier than what we had been used to reading recently, you can still hear his voice in this one. It's very distinctly Simak, as far as my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I on my, this is the second reading, I guess, and the first reading of the serial of it, and I liked it much better than I did the first time. It's not that I disliked it the first time, but I didn't appreciate it, I don't think, as much on the first read. Next month's, though, Empire is a slightly different story because it's not his idea. It is John W. Campbell's story. I think a story that John W. Campbell wrote when he was a teenager. He gives it to Simak to say, can you rewrite this? Simak doesn't. Everything that he writes is Simak's words, but I think he's using the plot and everything that is John W. Campbell's, and then he gives it back to Campbell, and Campbell rejects it. So, for whatever reason. But if you read any of the, I always forget now. There's the Ward Manley, or was it Ward
Morley, Wade,
and Arcot? Yeah,
is that it? Yeah.
If you know any of those stories, you'll see a lot in Empire in some ways. It's a similar type of thing. It's a fun story, but again, it almost leads on from this one, but we'll see, because of the super science stuff and things like that. But that was written probably in the 40s. That's why I've put it next, even though it was published in I think 52. So that's why it's the next one, because it was written in the 40s, probably late 40s maybe. And then Horace Gold, H.L. Gold, asked for a story that to put in the Galaxy science fiction novel series, and so Simak just gave him that. He's not proud of it. He says he'd like to forget it.
Yeah, I realized.
I haven't read those stories from John Campbell. Run a mile if anybody suggests it.
No, they're fun. They're fun.
The only thing I've liked that I've read from Campbell is Who Goes There.
Yeah.
I read that. Yeah.
Yeah, but you see that was written under his pseudonym Don A. Stewart. Don A. Stewart stories, I think, are much better than the John W. Campbell stories.
That's funny.
And Don A. Stewart is basically his first wife. Donna Stewart was her maiden name. So
Don A. Stewart.
That's cool.
What's the best pseudonym you've heard? Because I found an absolutely brilliant one this week. I think I knew it before, but I'd forgotten. Patrick Moore, the astronomer, used to write books under the name Artificial.
That's great.
Nice.
Artificial.
I've got a history of science fiction that he wrote. Not very good, but it's interesting.
No, I think he's probably the kind of guy who gets approached to write those kinds of books. He did write a science fiction series.
Patrick Moore did?
Yeah.
I've never read it, but I can't see it being that good, to be honest.
No, but that's not his forte.
So I think I pretty well have said everything, other than the fact that these extra added stories or chapters. I thought after reading the original serial, it actually lessened the whole a little bit. They're good, but it was better that they just all of a sudden reappear in the city and create the weapon, and that's it,
I think it would be better without them. I don't think those chapters add anything. I mean, I'm happy to be challenged on that, but I can't think of a single thing. What was the point of it?
Was it
we don't
length?
learn anything more about
just
the Hellhounds.
to add length to it then, or
I think so.
If it's there for padding, okay, but
maybe but I don't disagree at all.
But like Scott, you were saying, you get the beginning of Simak's descriptions of landscape in that as well.
Yes, right. Yeah. Because I remember when I was reading that, I was like, "Oh, here's Simak right here,"
Yeah.
With there were plants on the ground and everything. I was starting to think, "Oh, here we go into the intelligent plants, or what are we doing?" Yeah.
Yeah. So that you could see, because by that time he was starting to write, the city stories, and he always considered those to be when he matured as a writer.
Mm-hmm.
Even though later, when he looked back, like 20, 30 years later, he thought that he could improve on them, but he noticed a change in his writing at that point.
Yeah, interesting.
So one thing I got out of some of the added bits that he put in there was, it was pretty entertaining having the battle between the humans and the Hellhounds. Like they started a fire under their spaceship that they're hiding in to try to smoke them out, and then they create like bow and arrows to shoot them.
Yeah.
It was pretty entertaining.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, they're fun, but when you actually
didn't add much to the story though.
Right.
Yeah, if you read it without it, the serial, then that's the way to go, I think, really. Like, and I'm sure there's lots of other things that he did, like little touch-ups and stuff like that, which you'd have to compare word for word, and I was not prepared to do that.
Yeah.
We got a comment here from Kaylin. Why Dune the movie, but not these stories? 250s schlocky. not sciencey enough. The characters aren't well developed in a modern way. I mean, making a movie, I guess. I don't know. Well, Dune is definitely an audience. Like we were talking about that, I think, Scott, in the previous
earlier
slide.
today.
Yeah, like that there's an audience for that. They know they'll do it. If you say you're going to do Cosmic Engineers, it would be a fabulous film and it would fit today, but it doesn't have the cachet. It doesn't. People would say, well, who would go to see it? Who knows who's Simak and why? Like 1930s, you know? It just wouldn't. It wouldn't have the appeal for the audience. I don't think as much, and I think that's the reason why they do stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
It's
interesting.
because Hollywood producers lack that human imagination.
Yeah.
John Campbell liked.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're they're like a can of worms.
Is Zendaya available to play Carolyn? Because it's a big win. It'll sell.
And even if a filmmaker does try to, make an adaptation from something from this day and age, they completely change it.
There's no doubt. Yeah.
Well, I could just see them purposely making the guys all going, hey, look at her, and none of that is in there. Like, and that no hint of that really, other than that. Then I think the thing of saying, and is that they're just so surprised because it's not what you expect, and it's like the engineer said, it's not the package that matters. It's there's other things because the aliens, they're technological, but they're not. They don't have the imagination. They don't have the guts, in a sense.
One of the things that struck me too, because the imagination is so important in the story, that's sort of the important thing that human beings have. Yet in the very beginning, when we first find Caroline and she's first awakened, I mean, I was filled with a real sense of horror when she talked about how she has been in this state of suspended animation for 10 centuries. And she's been nothing but her mind, nothing but her imagination, and how horrifying that was. And that she actually prayed for death. She wished she could die because she was nothing but able to think, but couldn't do anything with all of her thoughts. So that filled me with a sense of real dread. That doesn't really get developed too much in the story because now we're on to, what her brain is going to do and how she's going to save the day. But I've had a real sense of horror, her horror at the beginning, to be sort of trapped in your own mind and not able to express the imagination or express your thoughts.
Or even go to sleep.
Yeah, she couldn't quiet her own mind.
And the thing is, like, if they did it in a new movie or something, they would have to say they would have to have her to see therapists and like this too, all the way through. And it's like that would destroy what the momentum of the story. Like, yeah, you'd think that she's probably gone a bit bonkers.
Yeah, right. 10 centuries she's been in her own head, But no, wake her up and off we go.
Yeah,
go save the universe now.
But also too, it goes to the strength that she has to be able to do it. And there are little bits that do crop up that are showing this kind of thing, that where that he hints at that. But yeah, it's not part of the story. It's like it's like you could have developed it. He could have developed it, but it would have been 2 or 3 times longer, And then just to throw that in, it just doesn't work, know.
But you could have added something, I suppose, when you were expanding the story into a novel. But I mean, she does mention briefly, everyone I knew is now dead. She gets over that pretty quick.
Well, she's had a long time to think about it.
Yeah, because she had a lover that left the drugs there and everything for her, so she was expecting him to come to rescue her.
That's right.
But and she doesn't know. We don't know what ever happened.
What happened to him?
Yeah.
I forgot about him. That's right.
So did she, to be fair.
Yes, that's right.
We moved on.
But she found the new guy. She found the new guy. You know, you clear that there's a connection there. There's a love connection, but he doesn't explore it at all.
Yeah.
But it's just like she she grabs a hold of his arm, and stuff like this when something's happening. I think when they go into the room with all the other aliens in, and they're horrified at what they see.
Mm-hmm.
That's very dirty.
I did think you were going to see that as a love story, but when he first finds her, sort of in suspended animation, think, oh, okay, Sleeping Beauty, here we go.
Yeah, right.
But it never goes down that line.
Yeah.
He's growling and snarling too much at everybody.
Love it.
But and some of the like hers, like some of the like the other characters, like the other scientists and the other pilot and the buddy of the main character, at times they're not that well defined. The cosmic engineer definitely is. Caroline definitely is, and the main character I think definitely is. But the rest of them, it's like they could be one. You could put them all into one, and you wouldn't really know a difference. There's no much difference.
Yeah.
Common for this time, but
yeah. So you see, like it's like there's Simak in there, but you can see him developing his craft as he goes on, but we're going to take a little bit of a. I do like Empire though for certain things, but we are going to take a back step here, and it's not all his fault. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Well, like this one, I probably wouldn't recommend someone. Well, definitely not start with this if you want to check out Clifford Simak, but even maybe 10 books in or something. I think at that point, it's pretty interesting to read it and see the little seeds of all these themes and ideas that he's coming up with. And so I think I enjoyed this a lot more having read a lot of his novels first.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
With Empire, what we were talking about this a little bit right pre-show, but what are people finding for versions of that are purchasable? I'm not having a lot of luck, other than like a Kindle.
Well, armchair, like I'd say,
that's what I have.
Ira has the armchair. That's the nicest one, I think.
Okay, what do you have there, Pat?
I found this at Thrift Books, and I bought it new. This is not a used copy, and it's an independently published edition, and it looks like that. It just kind of looks, very small print on the page, and but it was not very pricey. I mean, I paid a couple of dollars for it.
Okay.
And I got this at Thrift.
Okay, very good.
And it's published by eArt Now 2020. So, it's definitely an independently published book, but it wasn't expensive. Some that I was looking at were really expensive. So
okay,
it's on Gutenberg as well, so you can get it for free.
That's right.
Get it for free where?
Whilst you look for another version. But,
okay. Where did you say? I'm sorry, Gavin, I missed it.
So it's on Project Gutenberg.
Oh, it is. Okay, very good. Okay.
And then I didn't realize, I did that video with every first printing paperback. And I think Sean might have mentioned this, but I didn't realize what these were until I bought my first one. But those Galaxy novels, it's kind of like a mix between a paperback and a pulp magazine. The format's kind of a weird size, and this was published as a Galaxy novel, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you want like the collectible one, that would probably be the only option.
What is it? How is it? It's something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that our buddy Frederick Pohl that published that?
No, that was H.L. Gold.
Yeah, before Pohl.
Yeah, that was before Pohl came out.
Very good.
I can't remember what the first one is, but they're really nice. The cover generally they're quite nice, but they're a bit fragile. But they're basically the same size as an old Galaxy magazine. Are the ones that I've seen. In my Empire is a sort of it's somebody who's got his own press, I think, called Resurrection Press or something like that. And he prints the Hellhounds of the Cosmos in it as well.
Yeah, I see. I'm looking at that. I'm looking at Thrift Books now, and they have that available, and they have the one that I have. It's $8.26.
Yeah, I want to get the armchair one because that's the one I want to keep.
And this is what a Galaxy novel paperback looks like.
Oh, that's a later one. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the
this is
later
number
one.
35. So
Yeah.
it was a little higher quality.
Yeah.
And this one's in really good shape. The other ones were basically, I think, made out of the pulp.
Yeah, they're just the magazines. The early ones are magazines. Yeah, the later ones, I don't know how many of those that are like that, but they did change to basically paperbacks to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Huh.
Do you have your Empire to hand there? Or
Yeah, let me go grab it.
maybe show that one. Because that's the one. You just can't get it here. I don't know if it's on sale, if you can buy it from Amazon there or not, but you can buy it directly from Armchair Books. They do sell directly, I think, off their website, or they have a link to where you can get it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a double, and one side,
Oh, look at that.
and it's got the barcode on it from
Yeah,
Armchair Fiction,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't flip it like this,
Yeah,
and it's
they
like,
messed up there.
yeah, and this is different one on this side, but it's all printed straight through too. So like at page 86 or 80, you pick up Empire and you just start reading Empire at that page.
Okay.
I think the cover of the other one is a Valikursky, isn't it? The artist.
This side?
Yeah, I think it is. Looking at the robot.
See if they give credit. I'm not seeing any credit in here.
But I like the way they're done. Other than I wish they missed the boat. They should have had them flipped. They should have been able to do that.
And then the spines don't flip or anything either. So, and then they put the barcode on this side, which
that's the bad part.
Yeah.
But you see, but that's the thing. The other book is going to be they probably thought was the better one.
The Walt Sheldon book.
Yeah, like I've never heard of Simak, but I've heard of Walt Sheldon. Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what this is, but I'm on the same site. This is a hardcover edition, and that's the cover.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's just There, that picture is around on the internet of him typing, and so somebody has created a print on demand, and they've done a hardcover under quotation.
And it costs a fortune, so forget that.
Yeah, it's not that good.
No, and they have it in paperback too. That same edition. Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. Scott, is the Armchair Books one available on Amazon?
I can look real quick. Mm-hmm.
Looks to be really short too, probably like 160 pages or something.
It is short.
Yeah.
Maybe less.
Because then if anybody does want to find it, then at least they can find it there, or as Gavin says, go to
Gutenberg.
So
there is a I'm going to look for that specific edition, but there is that edition for a couple of dollars on there. There it is.
Yeah,
yes, the armchair is here.
Oh, good.
Yep. It's let's see, looking for price. It's $12.95.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a bit pricey for them, but
that's cover price.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, for me to get it here, I think it's like 60 or 80 pounds or something like that. For shipping. Like they
for them
want
to ship it
60 pounds
over.
for the shipping or some stupid thing.
Wow.
Like that.
Oh. Yeah. So very good.
Okay.
Well, fun, you guys.
Yeah.
This is great.
Good discussion.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone.
everybody. Yeah.
Thank you.
And thanks for everybody watching. We had 2 questions this time, or two, not well, 1 question and one hello. I think Mark was saying he was really busy today, so he probably just popped in and then had to leave.
I'm sure. Yeah, that's great.
So yeah, as soon as we're ending, we go up two viewers.
That's great.
Thanks everybody.
Good to see everybody.
We'll see you next time. Probably we might be able to do Empire within March the next time. So 2 in 1 month.
Wow.
Excellent.
And yeah, Joe's here. Hello.
There's Joe.
Hello, Joe. Cool.
Cool.
Yeah,
Retroactive.
if anybody wants to read an amazing review of Astounding, the Alec Navala Lee, go to Joe's channel, go to his
cool.
community tab and scroll down, and you'll find a link to his review.
I'll do that. I would love to read that.
And if you ever find you're not enjoying A.E. Van Vogt, read some of Joe's reviews, and it brings whole extra layers that people like me don't quite catch the first time.
Yeah, Vogt. I love Vogt too, and I've been collecting his stuff. And what I want to do at some point, if I ever get around to doing it, is disentangling all his fix-up novels to the original stories, and then seeing how those stories were reused in several novels. He was a weird guy, but I love his stuff. He drives me nuts, but I love him. Thanks, everybody, and thanks for stopping.
Take care.
Bye-bye.